the right way. My name is Eric Goodwin. I'm the board president, and we're going to have introductions in just a moment for all the board members. But I'm going to go ahead and read this statement. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the board secretary in the following manner. Posting written notice on the official school bulletin board at the administration building on January 29, 2019. Transmitted notice to the Courier Post and Philadelphia Inquirer on January 29, 2019. Transmitted notice to the clerk of Cherry Hill Township on January 29, 2019. Pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act, the board will meet and conduct a town hall meeting at Johnson Elementary School in the Media Center. No formal action will be taken at this meeting. And with that, I'm going to ask Mrs. Sugars to do a roll call, and I'm going to ask each one of the board members to stand up as she does that.
Mrs. Matlack? Here. Mrs. Neary? Mr. Rossi?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel? Mrs. Garbolino? Mrs. Schultz? Mrs. Tong? Dr. Wong? Mr. Goodwin?
Dr. Wong, Mr. Rossi, and Mrs. Matlack are the other board members that are here today. And we actually are going to have a facilitator who I'm going to introduce Mrs. Wilson. She is going to actually help us as we go through this exercise, and she's going to give us all the directions and everything, and I'm going to turn it over to her right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I got the chance to greet most of you at least as you came in the door. And isn't it nice to see the sun after a sloppy, very sloppy day yesterday? But you got a day of school in, and that's a great thing, right? Or at least in June we'll think it's a great thing. So it's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and also to be assisting in this really important process. I have to say my full credit goes to the board for being very reflective, for sort of calling a pause and saying, let's regroup, let's be reflective, let's think about what has to happen next since the December 11th referendum, what are our next best steps, where are the needs, how do we address them going forward, because of course the needs haven't gone away, right? So we have to figure this out one way or another for the district and the community to be able to move forward. So the fact that you're here is amazing. Your voices are very important, but more your ideas. So two kind of public service announcements. This is being live streamed, and the notes that are gathered today at each of your tables will be recorded and posted and archived on the website, right? So those ideas from all 5 forums will be posted after March 10th in one spot. So you'll be able to see not only the ideas that were generated here today in this group, but the ideas that have been and will be generated across the other 4 groups. Okay? How are we going to go about this? So over the course of the next hour, we have plenty of chairs, folks. Here, thanks. Over the course of the next hour, I am going to guide you through. So be patient because there's a process, right? But I can tell you the process works. So I'm going to guide you through a set of questions one at a time. And I really only have one request, and it's that you don't move ahead in the questions until we all move ahead in the questions, right? So we give enough time for you to hear each other's voices at your tables and to really give consideration to your thoughts. Someone at each table would be great to volunteer to be a note taker. They don't have to be complete sentences. You don't have to have great penmanship, just like legible posting of thoughts. We'll have about 7 or 8 minutes on each question. At the conclusion of that process, we will all be together for a good of the whole recommendations. What is it that everyone should hear in terms of constructive processes? So you're all here with varying experiences, varying points of view. Hopefully most of you voted. Some of you might not have. Whether you voted or not, how did you get information? What were you easily able to support? What was problematic? What could be done better, differently the next time through? right? This is really constructive. We're feeding the future here so that we can take successful steps together as a community, right? So the second ground rule is no names, right? So if you really think like, this was all problematic because Judy Wilson didn't know what she was doing, just don't put my name in, right? I had nothing to do with the referendum, by the way, but no names, all right? So process, information, protocols, communication, all of these issues will come up through this conversation, but please just in the notes, no names. Let's try a round. And if you're at a table, you all have at least 3 people, so I think we're good. And if there's a point as we change topics that you would just like to hear different voices, feel free to table hop, because you'll all be on the same cross, all right? So don't think anything of it. If someone gets up and says, I'm just going to go hear another set of voices, or see who's at the next table, or be with my neighbor. One of the side benefits of this is you'll probably meet someone new today, and that's a great thing too. Let's try the first round. So at your tables are, first of all, the ballot questions. As they were closed, just in case you need to look at them again, some people wanted to just refresh their memories about the ballot questions. And then there is a stapled set of blank pages with a letter in the upper left-hand corner for your notes. Just make sure your notes go notes A with question A, notes B with question B, please. And as you would expect, we'll start with question A. So I'll read the question and then turn to each other and learn from each other. If someone makes a comment or a recommendation and you want to probe or ask for it to be clarified, that's a very respectable, great thing to do. Pick each other's brains, try to get clarity around your ideas. So the first question is about the facility needs. Were the facility needs clearly identified? Was supportive evidence of the needs shared? Was there any piece missing in identification of those needs? And do you think that some of the no votes were because people wanted more work or different work done? So focus on the needs as they were explained, as they were presented across the district. And we'll go about 7 or 8 minutes. If there's a note taker at every table, great. I'll ring a little chime before we move to the next question. So concentrate on the needs. Were the needs clearly?
Okay. I'm Tara. I know, so you're different. She's my former PT.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the so I'm trying to guess more and different work for It's in relation to the 3 questions?
Yes. Well, the process too, like how you got your information, what you read about it, everything. Did you feel you knew what the needs were?
So what's
Did you show evidence of why it was needed? The work was needed. Could you really talk about groups and systems and space and so
my handwriting is not that great. For me, they were fairly like there weren't any studies done for the bond. They just level of impact. Right, unless you're here. Right, so need-based. Let's make them like need-based things that we saw. Absolutely no. I know that you are right. Still very hot, yeah. Right. They didn't include, okay, so we may not put it in the budget, in the bond budget, but these are things we foresee are going to be in the annual budget. Because they kept saying, oh, things will be in the annual budget.
More supportive evidence of evidence to share.
So it doesn't seem like they're noticing. It seemed like they weren't going to
I think we should take turns finding questions.
You do big. You can do big.
All right.
Right. So like, so what happened? Right. Not great. So for that novel in the past,
We're so no votes because no money is there.
it wasn't spread out. It wasn't spread out. It was forward. But like, and I if we started the middle school, because obviously I'm tenth of the kids get the benefits, you know what I mean? But like the middle school, everybody goes to the middle school. I'm going through right now.
So I said yes, some no votes were because people wanted more different work or less work. Security expectations were high, right? Yes and no. I mean, some people for it, some people wanted different security, some didn't.
And then they opened it up, and now it's a $2 million project. Yeah, right. Right. We are the cost, financial cost, what are we paying? Let's just versus if we build it, what our actual cost actually is, you know, because yeah, that would if you include your refund or better, that would help with the refund. So it's really
You will have a chance to revisit if you need to. I really appreciate all the energy in the room and you asking each other, you know, what do you think? What do you mean? What should our response be? Feel free to write exactly as you're hearing if you're described. You know, there are concerns about, we would like to see more of, it might have helped if, right? Going forward, this might be a better approach. Those types of comments are very much appreciated. We're going to turn our attention to question B. If you flip to the notes on question B also, please. Question B is about the ballot itself. So you'll recall that there were 3 parts to the ballot. 3 questions were on the ballot, with question 2 dependent upon the passage of question 1. Question 3 dependent upon the passage of question 2. Would a single question have been a better approach? In a future referendum, would you still prefer the choices of multiple interdependent questions? And if so, why? Right? It was broken down. Right? And if you have questions about the ballot itself, I'll come around and remind you or clarify that. But think about the actual construction of the question.
I think it's first to get this. Lost by a higher percentage.
I don't think so, because I think that's not so big. But I think it never so big.
And I would say with a single question have a separate.
So this is the base question.
Depending on, right, like the,
Right.
There were 2 and 3 that passed on the ballot.
Right.
yeah. But on the other hand, that's how they, it's held us hostage to that. You know what I mean? So the kind of steps about it. So if someone steps, you know, like we couldn't get number 2, and
Would it, so, I would say would a single question have been not at the amount that it was?
it's not. So I think it was needed.
Right. In the future,
It was in here that I wanted, but I didn't see here and here that
so you're asking would a single question have been
No.
so let's answer that question. So I would say no, and the reason would be for the amount that it was. I think people have an issue with the tax impact of the 3 questions. Yes. Future referendum.
Something single or multiple?
It could have, yeah. I think I would
Important in structure is that it has a land together. Single or multiple is going to say no. Make or break.
It should be like it's going to come out of
Right, like security, maintenance, wording, maintenance.
They're saying introductory, but I don't want to be the same feeling.
I want to be able to like
I would say, you could say like one of us says no and one of us says yes, because I think I work with that now.
oh, I guess I was trying to say I want something to be done. I want something to be done. And the way that this was set up made it like
the office is right there.
And that's what they're saying, do you want to advocate or not?
no, I want to say more people know.
Right, like who's making that decision? Who's
Like in this interdisciplinary,
so many people, you know,
Well, it was good of mine.
that
again, like the plan just not laid out, the process for how that goes to work is not laid out.
right.
But yeah, right.
So I would write like some people said yay, some people said no.
All right. I guess if I had to choose, I would say I would want to receive.
You almost think the intention was to prioritize needs, right? Like, this is absolute, this is needed, and that's needed.
Right, if it does have the fact
Well,
that
the issue, the reason why this didn't say this was because security, if that was
That's
right.
that would be
like if question one is strictly needs, not wants, strictly needs.
if you're gonna do staff, not the way they did right. And I think we were saying about the just how that's one thing too. Oh, yeah, great. Was, you know, I think most of the people would have right. I think most people would have voted for two. I think most people would have voted for two, at least got two. And again, very little tax that if they would have been voting. But we had to get one and there were huge so caused everything to be clean. So how do we describe
I'm going to make your
dependent and separate, right?
So what about
Question one for sure. Don't put anything controversial.
Right.
Question one.
And the thing was especially first of all, we were at East. I was there a lot longer before you guys were. So, and I knew it was the end of it.
So folks, we take a little shift. You'll come back to contents of the buildings. I'm going to ask you to turn your attention to question C about voter turnout. So voter turnout. After all was said and done, voter turnout was less than 21% of registered voters.
Can I ask a question?
So just to give a little comparison, my understanding is that midterm election turnout was over 40%. So just to give you a little
Can I, but another
comparison,
question,
yes.
like another special election, for example, the fire department. What's voter turnout, like comparing more
Oh.
apples to apples?
Great question.
Because I think
different
this was a
apples.
pretty, I mean, different apples.
No, what was the last voter turnout, the last Board of Election in April prior to the budget change? Because those hours I think were similar to what this was, so
Because
I
I
was
think
curious.
people were pretty happy with this voter turnout.
it's significant, right?
For what it was.
For
It's
what it was,
significant
yeah.
for a special election.
Right.
But there's a fact base about 21%. We'll get the fire special election number. I don't know that.
Okay.
Right? So in a standalone election, when elections used to be in April, remember that when budgets used to be in April? If you got 12%, it would be like yippee, right? That'd be kind of standard 12%. So now that it's coupled with November, we get higher, much higher, because people go to the polls in the November election at much larger numbers. Okay. The fire department, I don't know, but we'll ask.
Right.
Thanks. So just think about the get out the vote. Whether people voted yes or no, just think about the get out the vote effort, getting people to the polls. What was effective about the get out the vote effort, and what could be improved? Because we want people's opinions there, right? What suggestions do you have for get out the vote in the next referendum, whenever that will be? There will be one. We don't know when and what yet, right? But the next time around, what are the most effective measures the board can use to be sure that people voice their opinions and get to the polls? So we'll spend just 5 or 6 minutes on this question.
It was being involved. I mean, right.
I mean, I know they couldn't have done anything else. They did.
They put stones everywhere.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
Even though
What mark?
Yeah, I feel like
but
our voter turnout was not high. I think it's misleading. Because I think for the special election, it was high. It was decent. I mean, certainly not compared to a midterm election. Well, no, but I was going to say this.
It was the hours. So we need that. We need that. The hours were limited to before that.
right. And which I understand. There's very before they could have together they are. It should have been like a normal maybe, but they were presenting themselves. The new information section, which it wasn't. Exactly.
I would say in terms of
But they
getting
could say
get
just
out the vote effort,
here's
it was everywhere.
I mean,
It was.
I didn't like how they yeah.
What suggestions do you have for get the vote out or?
Right, exactly. But also I think just the date and the time of the election. It costs them $40,000 to have that election on that special. What can each school have done with another $2,000? You know, just give them the money. Right, and that was only to have it
I'll jump right back.
Hi, how are you?
Unless you're and you're out
I think a lot of people did reach out.
I'm involved heavily in
But if they wanted more turnout, they shouldn't have done it on this well, I don't know if that's right. Well, I think that flyer, each got that flyer, the district,
I thought we should make that flyer.
so we didn't.
The hours, that's the most few.
It was very well done. I didn't pay attention.
That social website. Which is all the more reason we follow my law. Big election.
It was because I couldn't go on.
November to get highest turnout. I went to one very at low cost.
Well, I have to
Also, if it's a November election, you have home ballots. It would be on the ballots, by mail. Yeah. It's special election.
Oh, you mean that?
It was like, oh, church, what is you know what I mean? So we had a picture of it. Yeah.
So that one seemed pretty easy to approach, right? I mean, people had lots of good ideas about hours and time and transportation and childcare. So the next question focuses just on the first ballot question. Just on the first ballot question. So it's D. The first question carried a zero tax impact and at least 37% state aid. And yet it was completed by about a 10% on tax.
It's the same.
What were the main factors that you think contributed to the defeat of the first question only? Just focus on the first question. You might have been surprised if the first question didn't carry. Maybe you weren't. But what do you think about that first base question? What were the main factors that contributed to the defeat of it?
So I'm on one of those committees. This goes to the
They had never explained like who they're trying to keep out. It's all about the actual every way you're trying to keep out. And it's like, what's the real risk here? You're really spending it's $300.
Look at our taxes and all this. I think that also affected it. And people don't want them, they were confused from the state bond to this. And if they what do we get a piece of money? So why should I invest it? What? There was a state bond.
The 500 million. We would have gotten it done. Jerry was like slated to So that's fair, right?
Okay.
Yep.
That was
So people did not clearly understand the state bond that just passed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's based on, it was a good
And how is that short? Is this right after this? Or before this state tax?
We might have.
And
Because it was like,
it wasn't, yes, you know, we were there from day one. I was going decided what they were going to do.
That was before they decided what we we're going towards like that, and we will actually practice. Because I'm not for qualified, and they said, I do not qualify in November.
We was not after they decided that they were going to do.
That's what not right. It was
Yeah, the past security plans were not. Interior security
Most of these were like 16 million. Is that right? The first question? Yeah. 15? And that takes it down to 30 million.
I'm assuming like other people that if we pass
What's the difference?
Then it went down to 2 minutes. And then it went to 3 when they decided to die. And it's gone down.
You guys know more about the inner workings, but what I see is bottom line is
Security for the government was cared for, and past security plans were
Very well.
Maybe but we're dealing with it is. It's an emotional piece. You know what I mean? But I think that we I'm not saying like play numbers game. I'm saying we should have security. Security should be focused on where's the credit. You know.
So as always happens with really good, interested community members, we begin to try to solve the problem, right? So we're going to get there because this is a process that lies ahead of us. So the next question you've touched upon in your other responses. It's purely focused on communication and only on on communication from the district. So if you were following, other social media groups, or that'll come later. Let's just focus on what the district issued in print, in the website, like what information you received from the Cherry Hill Public Schools. Clear, timely, comprehensive. What would you change? And what would you change in terms of format? Right? How much of it was electronic? Did you need to see more in print? Was it visible everywhere? Did you get enough messages? Well, enough detail, timeliness. Just think about the communication angle on this for a few minutes. Just from the district. Try not to go to other groups or social media yet. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel like after the whole thing is probably definitely. But the planning, yes. So initially, and I don't know when you.
So yes, clear, yes, timely, no.
Okay, so you were, so initially it was like $60 million budget. The $60 million bond that was
They weren't
is the bond that we spent on. And then like in the early like public discussion, board meeting, all this stuff, 200. It was very, that transition
in 2016.
was 2016.
Okay. Right. You need like a big structure. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And I understand like they sent people
Lengthy, it was
what they said was we're gonna do this.
complicated.
They send things about numbers and like
What are our
to each kind of see like things like that. And they have a plan for it. I feel like that's super cool that
Right, you didn't know. And the only thing to just like you were saying,
very sharp.
it's short as
We didn't see how sausage
so people think like, I mean, it's not like flash full, but it's fine.
we didn't have like
Over like, yeah.
what would we have?
yeah. Oh, the folds up portion. I'm getting some state to get it. September.
Like IE survey.
Right, like your like you said, the chance, because families,
But I would say as
You know what's funny is so I'm on the historical commission and I was looking for stuff for the 50th anniversary, right? And I found this brochure from like 1967 from Vermont. It was a brochure and it had like plans for every school. And it was like, here you go. Perfect. And I felt like those existed, but they were kind of like, I kept having to send people things. It was hard to find anyway, it played out very well. Anyway, right when they stop and we're making the take their jobs, and I get that. We're all the same house. Like,
yeah.
so with yes,
I think this, and I think this played a big role. What role did social media content not sponsored by the district play in reference to I mean, it was the role.
and there was no
I've seen kids being able to that.
And there was a lot of like, it's happening, so it's happening, but I guess a lot of details. Right.
Outside of it, or.
Okay, the last question is a follow-up to that communication question. And it's about other sources of information that came to you mostly electronically, but other sources of information. So, especially when you were thinking about social media content that was not sponsored by the district, right? Neighbors, friends, other associations, whoever that might be. What role do you think that played in this referendum campaign? Do you think it was a challenge for people to know what information was accurate and what to trust? So we're only going to spend 4 or 5 minutes on that, and then we're going to come together as a whole group. Did this after social media?
Well, we kind of answered it in the other one, but we can say one major factor of I think they had a personal commitment. Personal connection.
That's right, yeah, social media would be.
Yeah, social media.
No, I think he was social media.
Oh, he was social media.
So as long as you're covering the social media question,
There was like, I feel like it was good information, and at least there was a discussion. And we had a good discussion. And I want to go to
What major factors led to people? I would say festivals in question one. I would say social media outside of district. Yeah, and some people.
Right. And I understand, like, board members,
Yeah.
first of all, I think board members can't get involved in information. But I think there's a way.
Yeah.
There's a way to engage with the lives,
Right.
you know.
So that was a
Right. Or of what, their voice.
Would coalesce events that would bring just based on the timeline, that's what she was saying, based on the timeline that we already have laid out, or I guess the change, they couldn't my question is.
Like, the questions were pretty good, and they were pretty good, but, they didn't really answer the question. And then there were people who said they were speaking on behalf of they're not willing to make maybe. And then, like we're saying, like, it would take 3 to 5 years to make that happen. And those are people who said they were on that group, but I don't think that's a hundred people said. But some people said 3 to 5 years. No, they were saying like this right now, like what we're doing now, they said it would take 3 to 5 years to put music to put up something, right? And so I did a quick question, you know, and Dr. Long answered it on one of the live versions he was thing, and he was like, oh, that's not right. Like it was so, there was no, yeah, and I think that's what everybody like, right, was okay with, but this whole like, it's infrastructure, and people were saying, well, that's a story, and then for the administration saying, no, we don't have that. Right. Yeah. Right. It's already going to be. Right. Exactly. The social media thing,
No, I didn't mean it that was very historical. My parents used to tell me, or they go to the land, my dad told me about growing up. I wanted,
So it's time for us to hear each other's voices and come together for about 15 minutes or so under your best recommendations. So if you would just think about this for a moment. I will call on you, but I'll do it in a way that if you've already spoken and someone else has not, we'll give another voice a chance first before I come back to you. Having had these discussions and having thought a lot about this issue before you even walked in the door, which you did because you were compelled to be here at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Going forward, what are the pieces that you would like to voice, not as a question, not as a debate, but as an, I would like to see, I think it would be good if, right? I would recommend. What are the things that you would like to have recorded as recommendations for the community and the board? Because we will address this facilities issue again, right? They're not going away, and there's a strong responsibility, stewardship responsibility on the part of the board to address issues. As they work that out, what are your best recommendations? What are the things that you would like to succinctly say? Consider this. And we'll make sure that that gets recorded. Mrs. Sugars is going to record those so that they're there for everyone's consideration. So we'll start with you. Thank you.
So I think something that the three of us talked about a lot was that we know that not everything can be in the bond. Things like policies and procedures and how things are going to work, and also annual maintenance focuses. Things that aren't in the bond actually need to be part of the bond discussion, because when we saw something not being on the bond, it's easy to assume that's not going to happen, you know?
As opposed to it might be in the annual operating
budget. Right, it might be in the annual operating budget.
Right.
It might be in a long-term plan for annual operating, or like for security, right, or maintenance. Like for security, okay, there's going to be a physical structure to this, but how is that going to work with policies and procedures? Who's going to be vetting people? And because that part of it wasn't discussed, I feel like people didn't understand how it was all coming together and what it was going to look like or what it's going to work. Right. So things that aren't.
Good start for us. Thank you. Other points that you'd like to make? Other recommendations? You know, we're leaning forward now, right? So we've unraveled a little bit of the past and looked at what happened and what didn't happen and what was effective and what might not have been as effective. Leaning forward, what are your recommendations? What are your, I would like to see?
So I thought that I'd like to see a clear cost comparison between building new facilities and maintaining the old facilities. Because I think that, I do work part-time at Cherry Lease as the girls volleyball coach, and I'm there, I see the facilities. I was told recently that it was a $500,000 increase to do the auditorium roof, which is now $2 million, I'm hearing. Almost $2 million. So I think that we need to really take a very clear look at how much it costs to maintain the buildings we currently have versus how much it would be to build new ones. And I know NJ.com did some research, and there's some high schools that we could build right now for the amount of money that we're putting into this bond.
Thank you. So a cost comparison, maintenance, renovation, addition versus new.
Sure.
And I think we'll get maybe a little fact check on the cost of the roof, because I don't want to throw
Yeah. That's, like I said, that's
Right, yeah, I have
just
numbers.
those numbers.
Thanks.
Exactly.
Thank you. Yes.
So I think our table agrees on a few key things, and relating to what you guys said, the cost comparison, leave everything, all options on the table. Don't remove anything. Leave them on the table. Cost comparison, new buildings or maintain the old. We have to look straight the fact that these buildings, we have 19 schools, are near at the end or at the end of the life, right? Their lives. So it may be an opportunity to say, okay, maybe new buildings, right? compared to maintain old building. Also consolidation, maybe we want to consider not running 19 schools, reduce it from 19 to 12 or 11, whatever number. So that will have some cost saving, right? So we want like a vision. Like maybe we'll
Longer
vote
term.
for the bond, but what I'm voting for, like the same buildings, like the same thing, just to pack up. It doesn't make sense about it, right? So what's our end product? That's what we're looking for. Yeah, and more changing to a fiscal responsible mentality as you're remodeling your house. What would you do? If you got the mentality right, I think the bond maybe worked out in much better shape than how it was. So I wrote something down. I will leave it with you so you
Yes,
can
please,
look at it.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
it'll go into the record, awesome,
Yeah.
thank you, great, thank you. Other recommendations, things that have not come up in your group?
So, after listening to everybody, one thing I can say is there's so much creativity and talent among, Cherry Hill parents, Cherry Hill residents, the board, and I just felt like the bond didn't reflect that. It didn't reflect an overall vision, creativity, the future, what we're going to look like 20 years from now. It was just like, let's put some Band-Aids on, and I just feel like if they can get that message out on the vision and the future.
What are we creating?
What are we creating? That would be so much more effective.
Thank you. Other points? Things you're burning to say and recommend?
So Cherry Hill is wonderful, the schools are wonderful, the staff is like top notch, and we put that statement out all the time, and we should. And I feel like sometimes, especially with this previous bond and going forward, we didn't necessarily paint the picture of, but our infrastructure is not great. It's not great. You don't want to paint a doomsday scenario, certainly, but these projects need to happen. And if they don't happen, where do those funds come from? They're going to need to come from somewhere. And there's this, capital reserve budget, but after that capital reserve is met, where do they come from? Numbers don't lie. So maybe paint, not the doomsday picture, but just if these projects aren't going to happen, this is where this money will come from. Is that what we want as a town going forward? Is it that staff gets cut or programs get cut? Or I don't know that everyone necessarily understands
The
where it would
ramifications
be.
of a failed vote.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
So one of the things we were talking about also is that we didn't feel like there was a lot of numbers. Like, so you could click through and see what each school needed the bathrooms and roofs. But, if I redo my bathroom at home, it's very different than what the school has to go through to redo a bathroom.
Yes.
I don't just call the plumber down the street, and so I think some of the problem might be is people are saying this is a ridiculous amount of money, and to let people understand that it's not the same as redoing your bathroom at home. There are state regulations.
Yep.
That
Many layers of state regulation.
and I don't feel like that was really made clear. And I mean, there were lots of lists of things that needed to be done, but as to why it's so expensive to do a school roof and why it's so expensive to do a school bathroom.
Thank you. Yes.
A couple of things. One is narrative, is that really doing the storytelling, explaining really in words versus maps and PDFs that are very accessible. We all live in the smartphone world. It's much easier for us to read a story. We're storytelling generation at this point. And it would really help tell the story of why Johnson needs this, or East needs that, West needs that. Also going back to the planning is really, and it's a strategic plan, because right now I feel like we've all been focused on a bond, but strategic planning is so much more than that. What's the forward thinking? I think it's a little bit that we said before. It's really discussing those issues and finally involving the alumni parents and those other groups that are no longer actively involved with the schools in the day-to-day, but do deeply care because their children are all products of the system, need to come to the table and need to create a group for them within the district on security, on alumni parents. There need to get seats at the table in order for this to ever happen again properly. You've got to bring people into the room.
Thank you. 3 very specific recommendations. Thank you. Yes.
And then the elephant in the room, taxes, real estate taxes. They're very high here, very high compared to these other districts, other places in New Jersey, but even throughout the United States, we pay some of the highest
Yes,
real
New
estate
Jersey
taxes
certainly does.
in the United States. And when the mayor said, well, people just don't wanna pay more. What are you talking about? We've been paying more. You know, our taxes have gone up a lot. And we're willing to do it. But I think we need from the board some fiscal responsibility and also from the administration. In terms of, and I know it's hard, I get, you can't hire a plumber down the street, I get that. But where's the creativity? How are we using our resources? What ways can we use to maybe cut some money from something? You know, that I'm not talking programs and teachers, but in other areas, do things more cost effectively. Is there consolidation? I'm not saying that's the answer, but everything should be on the table because our taxes are high, and how can we make this so that it's a little bit more palatable to the average family in Cherry Hill?
Thank you. I think that goes to tell the story, and also, you know, you really want the efficiencies to be highlighted. Yes.
I think to that end also, you know, this fair funding thing has been going on for a decade, right? And I feel like, you know, the district has been doing some things, and from my perspective, it seems like only in the last year or so. But it's hard, I think it's hard for the public in Cherry Hill to say, to listen to the board say, trust us, you need to pay $210 million when they're not joining the class action lawsuit to get the funds back, and they're not, you know, they're not engaging the public to go march on Trenton, and they're not marching on Trenton themselves. You know, it has been a huge tax impact to the taxpayer to not be fairly funded for a decade, and now I felt like that it was hard for me to just it's harder for me to trust the board when I'm not seeing that, you know.
Okay, she put it in a good way. Credibility is what we talk about. Every question pretty much, that's
Credibility at the bottom.
even like it's holding us back from looking at the details of the box.
Thank you. Mr. Hand.
Oh, yeah, I was saying, we were discussing how if you only have, like, say, elementary school, so you only see the one school you're in, if you haven't been to the other, like, 11 elementary schools.
How to see the big picture.
Right, and I was saying, I went to school for my entire, in Cherry Hill, and a lot of it, and most of it's exactly the same. And even when they opened and closed and reopened Rosa, there are things that are, you know, you just remember, like there's a curl in the softball backstop. That's still there. You know, it can't get changed next year. Sorry. And I was saying that like and that people, when they come in, they see changes, they don't realize that a lot of times those changes are made by the PTA. Like this library, the PTA, we set aside $10,000 to renovate. I painted the walls myself, and over the summer. And we, and same thing with the mural outside. Outside, we did that last year.
How much is done by volunteer effort and
right, and so it is the parents paying into it when we do the fundraising. So we try to tell them, like, this is how we spend your money, and we did family nights in the library so we could showcase how we spent the money and how the kids used it. We were able to get iPads for them and then the mural. We took pictures. We had an opening, like the kids. You know, we took pictures with the kids, and and so people can see, like, they can touch it. When you're just hearing $210 million for 19 schools, it doesn't mean anything unless you actually saw the little mouse you run across the hallway at East, or the termites on the walls. You know, when it was said it was fixed, and we go to change the countertop, and there's active termites. The contractor tells me there's active termites back there. So now they have to come back in and treat it again. Like, and people get that letter that says we treated it for termites, but that doesn't mean anything to the average parent. Like, you don't know, as long as it didn't affect your child. Unfortunately, like, people don't. It's not drilled down enough. Like, this is how it impacts you and your family or your tax base.
So impact on both. So part of it's vision and storytelling, and the other is how does this impact you, and maybe you do have children at the elementary school. How will it impact you as they go through the system?
And for those parents that have high school kids, they plan to leave. And I remember my husband met somebody who's renting, and he said, "Well, this house is for sale. Why don't you buy it?" Because the second my kid graduates, I'm out of here. I'm not paying the taxes, let the other
Very
guy pay the
common
taxes.
New Jersey
Right,
story,
yeah.
it is, yes, right? So it's our preschool parents who really need to see that this is their future too.
But even the high school parents, if you plan to stay in Cherry Hill, now you have no kid in this district.
Right.
It's gonna impact you.
Your housing value, absolutely.
Right, and so even if, when you go to sell it sometimes later, and they compare it to like a town that has nicer schools, you know, a nicer school facilities, it's gonna make a difference, because that's what the people who
all
don't
that
know,
has
they're,
together.
right.
Thank you.
My name is Karen, I know a lot of you. I know there's a lot of issues here. I think that, you know, a couple things. I'm not in favor of consolidation. I'm in favor of community-based things. I'm in favor of opportunities for children. You can only have one lead in the play, one quarterback, what have you. That's my personal opinion. And I think that it's short-sighted to do consolidation like that. I think overall, everybody wants a better school, right? So everybody has different things they want. So instead of like, you know, like when you plan a party, sometimes you need to be a little more generous. So instead of holding the school board to some sort of, okay, you can only use this plate, and you know what, you cannot have colored napkins, and you cannot, what have you. Maybe it's a more of a, okay, we're gonna get a new football field, but you know what, me personally, I wanna see some new science labs, right? Let's put some other stuff in, maybe make the bond a little bigger, okay? And let's see what's gonna happen in 20 years. Let's all have smiles on our face in 20 years because we're happy with the actual product. You know, you can spin it any way you want. People didn't understand, the storytelling, what have you. But the actual product needs to be something that is enviable, the word I'm using. Because we should all envy or want to be putting our children or our children's children or what have you in these schools. So in order to do so, you know, we need to ask, you know, credibility, what have you. Maybe that's through, you know, support or like at least fighting, volleying for our schools in the state. But we're gonna ask that of like all of our residents, maybe through the storytelling, maybe not, but the actual product has to be pleasing to all of us so that we want to be here and other people want to come here. And that's the issue. It's not like, you know, okay, the bathroom was 10 grand because we got the 3 state mandated things and it should have been 11. That's us tearing each other apart and tearing the people who are spending hours just trying to get the quotes because that's how things work. It would be better if we said, these are the things we want to see to make it a place where people already want to come. Let's have more people want to come. That's what I think.
Thank you. So, other thoughts?
Just kind of jumping to the structure of the proposals.
Yes.
You know, one thing that we talked about a lot, and I know this is kind of boring administrative stuff, but I think proposal 1 would have passed unanimously if it was just about security. I think most people would be pro-security, or at least be have enough guilt in them to vote pro-security, you know, whichever side of the fence you're on there. But I think that would pass pretty much unanimously versus what was thrown in, where it's like, hey, it's all the security stuff, and then there's also these other things that we're going to lump in there: cafeteria renovations, multi-purpose room, everything else. I do think if they itemized it very well, but if they had categorized it possibly, you know, by, hey, security, we talked about maybe maintenance, and then maybe, you know, upgrading learning facilities, I think that would make more sense, and I think would be easier to kind of chew.
Thank you. Categorization of the content of the questions. Thanks.
We also similarly talked about having a separate security bond, because everyone has a differing opinion on what's best for security. But if you had, say for example, a much smaller needs-based project bond and put that out first, say it's $30 million, $40 million, and then you can take the time to do surveys where you're getting, like what you were saying.
I like that. I think
where
that's
like
a great idea.
everyone
Let's
gets
see.
input,
Yeah, I think
like a
that's a
health
great
and wellness
idea.
type of a
Right.
smaller bond, and then you can have a separate security bond, or you can do an extensive survey and survey the community. And also, we were talking about in the fall of 2016 when we did the original survey. The survey itself in the fall of 2016 was not so user friendly.
Survey.
But surveys in general, do you want it to be 10% of the community that responds? Do you want it to be 40% of the community? Because like a 10 or 12% return on a survey is actually considered a pretty successful survey. But do you guys want it to be that rate, or do you want it to be higher than that and work within the community until you would achieve that? But in the meantime, maybe work on just a very small needs-based bond that would buy us some time, essentially, to do a little bit more of the wants
Or conversely, take all the needs-based out and say that should be part of our regular budget and possibly the funding that we're owed from the state.
You're not gonna get
A
that
little,
money.
a little pressure.
I know.
Nice. A little pressure on.
We heard that very specific recommendation about chunking the work. Other specific recommendations before I know a lot of people are watching the clock, and I'm not rushing you, but I know you have to pick children up or have allocated so much time. So if there's a thought that hasn't been expressed or a topic that hasn't, you want to be sure to get to that first.
Only peripherally related to the bond, but I've always wanted the schools to go back to the old start times. And I felt like with this bond that it wasn't even being addressed and that it's completely overlooked. It's very important to me.
Thank you. And I agree with him. Start.
And I'm not biased.
Right.
A lot of people agree. We keep being told that, you know, it's impossible, but a lot of people say it is possible, and we only just switched it. But I think that, I think it's unreasonable to do all this work and not consider that your foremost, this is education. So you need to have awake brains, and I think that's, you know, very, very important.
Okay. As an additional topic for the board to
I think
consider.
that's first. One thing I think we talked about also is we're paying the bond. We were supposed to be paying the bond 2020 to 2040, but the work was going to be done by about 2028. I think about all the work was going to be done. So we're doing this really top-heavy bond with this work, and it's all done by 2028, and then we're still paying it till 2040. So it wasn't to me like a long-term plan. What's happening in all that time between 2028 and 2040 that we can't do anything about?
In other phases.
Right, and maybe smaller bonds probably would be a better option, spread out through time.
Yes.
Also, alternative funding sources, utilize what we already have within the district. Don't hit me for this one. Utilizing the education foundation, because there are certain concerns where how money has to pass through different hands. The district can't directly do. There's this crazy legislation, and letting parents really know about the crazy rules that are embarked on the school board, on the school district, by the state. Parents, I sort of understand, but most parents don't even have a sort of understanding. It's really communicating how much their hands are tied when it comes to getting alternative funding sources to utilize the things that already exist. Turn to the education foundation about what else can we utilize as a fantastic group of volunteers that have all clearly dedicated time to the district to try to get that more funding, corporate sponsorships, and other money that's out there. Corporations want to unload money right now.
So that would most likely impact the annual
but also could fund about $10 million could fund a major renovation at multiple could, not looking at just their $1 million less. I'm looking at $10 million donation. I'm looking at these large projects and going and asking them. The private schools, which I've had a lot of work with, I've all done this already. So the money is out there.
Thank you.
I think you heard me mention before, I know that the general population of this particular meeting is school-related age-based parents. There's a lot of non-parents that I don't think were addressed, that through the social media that I've had, and those are the ones that are socio-media savvy. The ones that are not even savvy need more mailings, they need more paperwork, they need more outreach community groups. I don't care if it's religion, I don't care if it's adult senior activities, I don't care if it's the local
anywhere a couple people are together.
The Silver Sneakers Club. There has to be a little bit more interaction, I think, with the board. I think there has to be a little more interaction with the community. I think it's great that Cherry Hill Sun offers your applying prior to your election, but we need to see you more out there in the community. We need to see you go to school PTA meetings. We need to see you at the PTA meetings justifying why this particular community in this neighborhood needs this, and this particular neighborhood school needs that. And I actually sit in the middle. I agree that there needs to be some sort of practicum and consolidation of funding for various projects within the schools, but at the same time, each neighborhood has its own flavor, so to speak, and each neighborhood needs why does Johnson need this versus ours needs to see that. As an employee of the district, as well as a parent, I've seen all the schools, I've seen all the problems, I've seen all the populations of all the aged children come to me with their needs, and I kind of know what each and every school needs. And as far as I gave her, for example, I thought somebody raised the point before, which I thought was excellent, that there needs to be a separate referendum on the safety issues alone. I presented to one of the PTA members, I have a whole list of evidence-based, long-term research, quantitative and qualitative, on safety issues directly related to progressive anti-bullying measures. I don't think any of that was addressed with the bonds. I know a lot of parents brought that up. They wanted to see more non-financial, but yet program-based, community-sponsored, adult-guided, chaperoned, peer-related issues that will address anti-bullying measures that would help so much with the schools. I'm presenting this to the PTA or
And
you.
a copy for
I don't
you
care.
as well.
You can make paper airplanes out of it. I don't care.
That won't happen. No, that won't happen.
Your annual, that seems like more your annual budget.
So I'm going to take,
That's the thought I was thinking, that I think each PTA as a representation of the school, because they're getting both the administrators' needs, the teachers' needs, and the parents' needs of each school. It should somehow be presented to the community at large. What does this school need? What does this school need? What does this school need? Budget it and have it budgeted. Everybody, I want to know what Johnson needs versus what Kingston needs versus what Horace Mann needs. I want to know what their needs are. And I think not enough people got that.
thank you. I'm going to take this comment and before, I just don't want anyone to run out without, first of all, a very sincere word of thanks on behalf of your school board and your administration. I also will say that there will be very brief surveys with similar questions to the ones you responded to today that will go out to everyone in the community. So encourage your friends and neighbors and other parents and anyone with an interest to complete the survey.
I just wanted to say thanks to the 5 of you who are the board members that are here. You guys, this is one of hundreds of meetings, and you are all volunteers, so thank you for giving up a part of your day today to be here. You volunteer, thank you. You guys work your tails off and volunteer, so thank you very much.
If you were a scribe and you'd be kind enough to make sure I get your notes, that would be wonderful also. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It was good.
It was so nice to meet you.